We're here to talk about mining cryptocurrency like a couple of dummies, because that's what we were when we started this thing. I'm still on. Well, we're still learning. How do you make this thing go?
Right.
Oh, there we go. Just start off who we are. I'm Tom Pohl. This is Brandon Murphy. We're both from Des Moines. We belong to a little group called SecDSM. It's a city sec out of Des Moines, where we get together on a monthly basis and talk about information security related topics. First of all, there's other city secs around the country. So there's one down in Kansas City that is a bunch of awesome guys. It's like a couple hundred people every month. So we've been going down there quite a bit, and we love those guys. They created a cryptocurrency, and we thought it'd be hilarious if Des Moines somehow controlled their entire cryptocurrency market. So that's kind of the premise of where we started from. So we love those guys, so that's why we want to mess with them. You want to?
Yeah. So who here knows about Bitcoin? Who's ever heard that term? Kind of knows the concept. All right, sweet. So our talk is not about Bitcoin. What we're actually going to be talking about is a cryptocurrency that the guys down at SecKC created called SecKCoin. And so this is actually a fork of Litecoin. So everyone knows Litecoin, everyone knows that Bitcoin is Litecoin. All right, so Litecoin's a fork of Bitcoin, and so they made a fork of Litecoin called SecKCoin.
So when we got started, things that we knew, like we were total noobs. We still are total noobs. We were definitely total noobs when we started. And we knew we wanted to mess with the stuff, but we had no idea how. We didn't understand blockchains, we didn't understand miners or anything, and so we needed to figure it all out in order to mess with them. First we had to figure it out, and then we had to figure out how we were going to mess with them, right? So kind of a cryptocurrency 101. You want to talk about the wallets and stuff?
Yeah. So with cryptocurrency, you need somewhere to store your money, right? Your money, your coins, and so you use a wallet to do that. And there are two major forms of wallet: paper wallets, which look like this, and electronic wallets, which, if you use a GUI, looks kind of like this. So the concept of the electronic wallets is, you mine your miners when you're trying to search for a block and that you find a rewarding hash for. That goes to your wallet, right? So the miners find your money and they put them into your wallet. It's important to understand that relationship because we had no clue, right? I didn't know what a wallet was.
Yeah. So actually, in the wallet is what keeps track of like the entire blockchain, right? So whereas like your wallet is like typically standalone, right? Like you've got money in your wallet, it's not connecting anything, and that's how the paper wallets work. But like these electronic wallets actually kind of keep track of the entire blockchain. So like as other people do transactions, your wallet software actually downloads all those transactions and then enables you to verify all that transaction. So we'll get into it later where basically a transaction isn't really a transaction until like 50 people confirm like, yeah, that's a totally legit transaction that occurred. Right? And so it's actually your wallets that kind of help coordinate that work effort to validate everyone else's transactions on the network. And so that's where, that's a big distinction between like a paper wallet that can have value and electronic wallets that do more than just keep your coin, but then they also help validate the blockchain, as well as if you decide to start mining and getting your own coin out of thin air, they're the kind of the traffic cop that kind of coordinates all that. So here's how the SecKC coin is supposed to work, right? So there's a bunch of parameters. So when they forked Litecoin, there's a bunch of parameters that they could choose, and the parameters that we care about the most were: how often is a coin supposed to be generated? So at the normalized hashing rate, whatever that is, every 84 or 86 seconds it's supposed to generate a new coin. So that means about 1,000 coin every day are going to be generated by the entire network. So it's just like kind of like a, you get one, you did some work, you get one kind of thing. And then every 84 hours, so just over 3 days, then there's this concept of difficulty that gets recalculated. So that's an important upfront parameter. And but unlike a Bitcoin markets and Litecoin, where like the price of the coin goes up and down because it's a commodity kind of market where people are actually spending real money to get coin or spending coin to get real money. SecKC decided that they just set an arbitrary, like 100 coins is worth $1. And the only thing that you can use these coins for is to buy swag. So like at their meetings and stuff, they'll have like Velcro badges that you can put on your backpack, or t-shirts, or polos, or hoodies, and things like that. And so you can either pay them with real money, or you can pay them in SKC. And so 100 SKC will get you $1 worth of, of credit, at their swag table. And so that's how it's supposed to work. Now, one thing that we learned is that there's kind of a mining arms race, right? So basically you start with, like, you can use CPUs to mine, and then it gets into GPU mining, and then ASIC mining, and then like all out mining, ASIC mining where somebody else will do it for you. And so as we go through this, you want to talk about CPU mining and.
Yeah, so we didn't really know anything about SecKCoin or mining when we started, right? So like 2 months ago is when we actually started this effort and decided to mess with these guys. And so I'm sitting down there at their monthly meetup, like over in a corner in a booth, like spinning up cloud at cost instances that I'd already paid for. And I'm like, I'm gonna mine the crap out of this, right? And I didn't know how to do that, right? So we had to go compile that electronic wallet, and then I used MinerD to connect to that wallet, get work, and then put the coins back into it.
So one of the great things is that since they're trying to get people to mine, like they put together a nice wiki, like, hey, what do you know, what don't you know, and here's the step-by-step instructions to do it. So we were just kind of blindly following that just to try to figure it out. And they've got great instructions, so they're basically telling us how we can mess with them, right?
Yeah, I honestly, when I was going through that, I wasn't sure if they were just trolling everyone or not, right? Like, I had no idea.
Yeah, well, and they have problems with the GitHub repo, but we've helped them with that.
So the problem with CPU mining, though, is that it causes a lot of CPU load, right? Like this will fire up one instance of MinerD or one thread of MinerD for each CPU that you have, and it uses 100% of it, right? So cooling's important, so that way your shit doesn't start on fire. But to help mitigate that risk, you use cloud at cost, right? Like these aren't my CPUs anymore. I don't care if I use 100% of them. And with cloud at cost, I've already paid for that VPS for life, so it's really of no cost to me. So good way to mitigate that.
So then moving on from basically once we discovered that cloud at cost CPUs are super oversubscribed, and like our little computers or whatever, like I had an i7 with 4 cores or whatever, I could do like 40 kilohashes per second, whereas like the entire network was like at 300. So I mean it's a significant percentage, but we wanted to do way better. So we heard that you could use things like GPUs. In order to do mining faster, right? So one of our buddies has a nice GPU in one of his boxes at home. He's like, oh, let me try this and spin it up. So there's a different version instead of MinerD called CG Miner that's optimized for GPUs. And you basically just take the CG mine and you say, well, here's my wallet. Go, get the work from the wallet and start doing mining things. And he was getting, I don't know, like something like 400 or 600 kilohashes per second. So we were able to essentially with one card and his home computer double their network rate at hashing just because we went to GPU mining, which was awesome, but it wasn't enough, right? Yeah.
I know you've got AMD and NVIDIA displayed up there.
Yeah.
With GPU mining, I've heard AMD is a lot better than NVIDIA at that.
I've heard the same thing. We don't have any experience with the AMD, so we were messing with NVIDIA. And okay. NVIDIA worked just fine. And actually, our buddy had just like a brand new, what was it?
GTX 1080.
GTX 1080.
$700 GPU.
Yeah, he's like, this is going to mine shit out of it, right? But he turned it on and it didn't.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that GPU is Pascal based. Mm-hmm. And CG Miner hasn't been optimized for Pascal. So that's part of the problems with why one may be better than another. It may be with how it does the math in the card. And so his like 3-year-old card was actually, knocking the shit out of his brand new card because, he was using CG Miner optimized for NVIDIA, that was in the right, math algorithms for the card. Mm-hmm. So, you kind of have to match that off. But I've heard the same thing, like per watt, like I think AMD is supposed to be better. But we actually, in the course of all this, never had any access to AMD. Because the next step was we went to mining a GPU in the cloud, right? So, yeah. So we're like AWS, They've got two different types of GPU instances. And I always thought, like, this is Amazon. You have this smorgasbord of like all these instances. Like, surely they've got to have something gigantic. They don't. They only have two GPU types. Both of them are AMD based, or sorry, NVIDIA based. Their smaller instances got one card that can give us about 256 kilohashes per second, and then they've got their bigger instance, which basically instead of having one card, it's got 4 cards, and it can do about 1 mega hash per second. And so we first, like a bunch of dummies, would spin up full price instances of these guys, right? So it was like, I don't know, $1.50, $2 an hour, $2.30 an hour.
Was it going rate?
Was it going right? And we're like, and so we were spending some coin to make some coin, right? And we're like, this kind of sucks. This is not cash advantageous to us. And that's when we discovered that that there's these things called spot instances. And I don't know if you can see here, it says request spot instance, and there's this market price, because there's at any given time, there's a bunch of servers out there that they're not using, right? So instead of paying $2.30 an hour, right here, like when I took this screenshot, I can pay as low as 12 cents an hour. So what you do is it's kind of like a bid system where you say, I want to spin up 100 instances. It looks like the market price is about 12 cents an hour. So I can put in a bid at like 15 cents an hour. So this would cost me, if I spun up 100 instances, $15 for 1 hour, but I get 100 servers doing this, right? So it's like instantly you go like, oh, this is going to be pretty kick-ass, because if you do the math, if this is a big instance for 15 cents an hour, I'm going to go blow the crap out of the hashing rate that SecKC is doing. And then what happens is that as that market price of the supply and demand of the spot instances, if that market price goes above whatever your maximum bid was, your machines just get shut off. And you can make it like persistent, so it's like whenever that market price gets down to wherever you want it, then it'll spin up as many machines as it can, and to kind of turn your machines on and off. And actually, on this previous slide, you see that we create our own custom AMIs, so that basically, as soon as this machine started up, I'd start CPU mining on the box, and then I'd start GPU mining, and it all mined back to, like when we started, my personal wallet, right?
Yeah, that was one thing that kind of nipped me in the ass, where I didn't know about spot instances. I didn't know how anything with AWS worked, right? Like, I'd never dealt with this. And so I create this image that mines to itself, right? So like the wallet is on the miner. Well, then my spot instances start shutting off. And now I just lost all that coin. And so it's very important that you send all these servers, that they mine to a wallet that will always be up.
So yeah,
otherwise we lose money.
Because then once you figured it out, like if his cloud at cost instance that was always up, he was mining back to that, so that money wasn't lost, right? So yeah, I don't know how much money we lost with SecKC coin, but
yeah, the fake money, as well as real money.
But fake money can have real bad. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. And so then after we decided, okay, this is good, and we actually got some hashing rates up pretty decent, like 15 mega hashes, 20 mega hashes. We decided we learned, there's these things called ASICs. And basically, what an ASIC is there's different ways. So people can either custom fab it, or you can take what's called field programmable gate array. Any computer engineers in the house? No? Okay. So what it is imagine like a regular CPU in a computer is just a bunch of transistors hooked together, right? Intel figures out how to lay them out and hook them up. Well, what an FPGA is basically, it's a bunch of transistors, but they're not hooked up. And you download software to it, and the software will hook up those gates to basically create your processor. And so ASICs are basically, people have developed, the Verilog programs or whatever to hook up those transistors, so that they're not good for running like Intel processors. They're good for that one task of doing, like we're doing script or script based hashing algorithms. And so since they're specialized just to do that one thing, you can do that thing really, really fast. So you can get these ASIC boxes. So we went on, when you get on eBay,
on Amazon.
Yeah, you want to tell them about your
series? Yeah. So we wanted to, so the highest hash rate on a single instance of a single GPU that we were looking at was 256,000 hashes per second, and we wanted more. So we started looking at these ASICs, and This one was advertised at 28 to 32 million hashes per second, right?
Not kilohashes. This is like a factor of
magnitude,
more,
right? So we wanted to do this. So I didn't know where to buy these things, right? Like there's shady like Bitcoin forums and shit. And I kind of burned myself a couple of times, like finding ones that did like 14 terahashes. I'm like, oh my god, right? It's like $8. And but that's for Bitcoin, right? So so Bitcoin is a different algorithm altogether. It's SHA-256, and that shit don't work with SecKCoin, right? So learned that one the hard way. But so I find this guy on Amazon, and the seller, he's got it. His name was Rockin' Like a Boss, and hopefully he doesn't watch this because he's gonna learn that he got conned. And so I'm like, hey, so I'm like, so it's advertised for $265, and I'm like. I message him, I'm like, hey, I'm really interested in this. I want to get started into this like minor niche coin, but it's a little bit outside of my price range. Like, I'm just beginning, like, do you have anything different that would be a little bit cheaper for a beginner? And he's like, no, man, this is the best thing for the beginner, but what I'll do is I'll knock $100 off. So $160, I get this, sign the deal, like, done. Comes with the power supply. So the nice thing to know about these Zeus boxes, or really any ASIC, is they consume power. Right, so the power supply that came with this was a 1200 watt power supply, and it was really shitty. It was clear that it wasn't supposed to be in this box. Like he must have had a good power supply that he kept for himself and gave me like a really shitty one. And it was like electrical taped together, and it was a huge, right? But I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, let's do it. I really want to mess with these guys. So we're out at DEF CON, or we're going out to DEF CON. And this thing's on the way, right? It's shipping from this guy. I have some problems with shipment, but whatever, you got it worked out. So in the meantime, I'm setting up a Raspberry Pi. So these aren't standalone miners. You have to have a computer that runs the wallet that is designed to work with that miner.
And it's like USB.
Yeah, USB. So this is actually the backside with the fans. So like on the other side of this, you've got like just a big open hole where I ran cables out for the power supply. And then there's just it's a fitty like USB to serial adapter inside the box. And so I set up my Raspberry Pi, and I tell my wife, so she's not coming out to DEF CON, I tell her, I'm like, hey, this big box is going to show up. All I need you to do is take it downstairs, plug in the power supply, plug in the USB cable, and we're going to be rock and rolling, right? So she calls me, and she's like, I don't know how to hook this thing up. I'm like, it's 2 cables, baby. What's going on? She's like, it's not 2 cables. There's like 18 parts to this.
You saw the pictures.
Yeah, so the power supply was not connected at all, right? It was just in the box. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And she's like, I think I got this, right? I'm like, don't mess it up. And so she hooks it up, and sure shit it works. Like I couldn't believe it. But so the power supply, she's like, there's not enough room inside the box for this power supply. The cables are huge. And so that's why we just ran it out of the hole where the power supply would normally mount and just set the power supply on top. But it's really shady.
Well, and then, after you got back from DEF CON.
Yeah, so I come back and it's working for, a while. I tweak some settings and whatnot. And so I'm at work one day and I get this alert that says, hey, your miner stopped working. And I'm like, oh, well, that's not good, right? So I'm at work, I'll let it wait. So I get home, I start like hacking away on this Raspberry Pi, trying to figure out why it's not working. So finally, I can't get it to work. And so I walk downstairs to my basement where this thing's at, because it's loud as hell and hot as hell. And I smell fire. And I'm like, oh God, right? And so I get down there, and sure as shit, this power supply, where that electrical tape was, is all melted. And like the cable, the wiring, like I just pull it apart, like it's all like crisp and burnt, right? It's shot. So this thing almost burnt my house down because of that shitty power supply. So I'm pretty sure the only thing that saved me was the electrical tape, because that shit was like melted goo. And I'm like, that stopped that stopped oxygen from getting onto this and actually starting the fire. So be careful. I ended up buying a new power supply off of eBay. $28 for an HP 1200 watt power supply, $39 for a breakout board, and then I just wired it up myself, and it works great.
And it runs better now.
Yeah, it actually runs better. So that shitty power supply was like starving it. So I actually broke it while I was rewiring it. But so it still works. It's just like 3 legs up.
It's all to screw with your buddies.
Yeah. All to screw with our buddies.
Yeah, all the mess with it. Because as we're kind of working along here, so we kind of the other side of the story, like the actual mining side. So we figure out that we were once you get above the hash rate, right? So we're mining the majority of the coin. So like when the hash rate of everyone else was 300 kilohashes and we were at like 10 mega hashes or something like that, or 10 mega hashes, even that low, you know, we were getting like 95% of the coin, right? So like they weren't getting any, and we're getting a bunch. But we're like, we can do better, right? So we're just like, and then at this point, so then what happens is as you blow through the blockchain, so every 3,500, so each block is a coin, right? So you know, every block is going to have one coin in it. So once you find that coin, you move on to the next block. And so every 3,516 blocks is when it says, okay, how long did that take to blow through those 3,516 blocks? And then it recalculates the difficulty. So when we like jump in with a high amount of CPU, we can blow through those 3,500 blocks in no time, and like an hour. And it's supposed to take, remember back on the other screen, it's supposed to take 86 hours or 84 hours, right? And so then what happens is that like, well, that took 2 hours or 1 hour, and it was supposed to take 84, so then the difficulty's got to jump up so that it tries to make it so that if we've stayed at that high hashing rate, it's going to take us 84 hours. So we'll jump in and we'll get those first 3,500 really fast, and then it slows us down, so it takes us 84 hours in order to get the next 3,500 blocks. So you know, and so then what happens is we'll jump in, we'll get the hash rate up, get through a bunch of coin, and then we weren't getting stuff as fast. At first we didn't understand difficulty at all, right? We're like, why is this not working as well as it was yesterday, right? Because we realized, oh, we blew through the whole, you know, kind of that round of blockchain, and now we're on the new round, and we made it more difficult for ourselves. And so then what we did at that point, we're like, well, let's just throw more at it and throw more at it. So there's actually kind of a stair-step approach.
That's actually the next slide, is what we did with more. Right, so we're still trying to figure out, oh, the batteries running out.
Oh, that's fun.
So we're still trying to figure out we haven't figured out that difficulty thing. So we're like, throw more at it, right?
Yeah. And so apparently miningrentals.com is, instead of trying to, burn Brandon's house down with miners in the basement that are hot and use a lot of power, like it's consuming, what, about $80 worth of power?
$80 a month.
$80 a month with this one miner. We realized that for low price of, I don't know, 0.001 Bitcoin, you can get like 24 hours of some kick-ass miners on miningrentals.com. And then you just give them some Bitcoin, say, here's the pool or the wallet I want you to mine to, go for it. And then they basically, hook up to your wallet server, or in our case, at this point we're running a pool server, which we'll talk about in a little bit. They basically do all the work, and you can get some really good hashing out of it. Go ahead.
Do they actually own the hardware, or are they mining zombies?
Yeah, so these guys are like kind of a conglomeration company. So there's tons of people that have made rigs out there, good sized rigs like Brandon's, and then but like they stopped mining because like that arms race for whatever coin they're mining is past them. They're like, what am I going to do with this whole hardware? Put it on Mining Rig Rentals. So they're kind of like the clearinghouse for hooking you. Like, so this guy may have a rig that he wants to rent it for so much an hour. So they're just kind of the go-between to hook Brandon up with that guy, right? So they're the eBay.
No, they're the Uber.
The Uber. Yeah.
mining.
Okay. Yes. It's like Uber, but for cryptocurrency. Yeah. And so instead of us being smart, we're like, well, we just need to jack up that hash rate so we can keep blowing through that 3,500 coin before the difficulty goes up. And of course, we weren't smart about this, right? So we really start. Oh, and then pushing limits is so then.
So I wanted to know what the biggest thing was. So on Mining Rig Rentals, you see the biggest box that they have right now are these KNC Titans, which do about 300 million hashes per second. So that's about the peak that you can get right now with SCrypt. And the
next that are publicly available.
Yes, that are publicly available. So the next biggest thing that's going to come publicly available is this A4, which can do about 400 hashes per second. And the key thing to know there is that, so the KNC Titans came out about 2 years ago. And once one of those comes out, it raises that bar for everyone. Right now, everyone has to compete for that difficulty. And so right now, though, I think we're starting to push the limits of what that S-crypt mining can do, at least of what's publicly available.
Well, and so then now they're focusing on getting it to use less power, right? So that they're super fast, but it's like, well, then you just need more floor space and more cooling and more energy. Well, how can we make that more efficient? You know, make them smaller, make them cooler, take less power so they can keep going, right? But so just to kind of reiterate where we started, right? It was that the network hash rate overall was 300 kilohashes per second, right? And the difficulty was 0.002, which means it was really easy if you stayed around that amount of hashing to get 1,000 coin a day across everybody, right? So then our attack, so this is basically our attack of what we decided to do. We're like, step one, wait for the difficulty to be low. So when we started, it was super low, right? And then step two is we mine the ever-loving shit out of it. So we go through the blockchain. And then step three is we go to step one, right? So once we did, so then we got the difficulty up here, and then we turn all of our shit off, right? Then we let them, and a couple times it took them like a week to churn through the hell of, because you know the difficulty's up here, but they're mining like they're in first gear, right? You know, when we had it in 12th gear, you know, and so it goes really slow. So we back off. You know, we're not doing anything at this point, and they're all complaining because they're like, we're not getting any coin. You guys fucked it all up. And you can see, you know, graphically, this is where like we jacked it up, and then we're like, oh, well, you know, by about, you know, right here, we're like, we're not getting coin nearly as fast. So we're like, let's turn on more, and then finally when we get out here, we're like, okay, let's just turn it off. And then sure enough, a few days later, they blew through the rest of the blockchain. The difficulty went way back down because it took about, this is probably about a week right here. And then we're like, guys, it's all on. Let's go kill it. And we took it up here. And then we're like, kill it, and then kill it, right? This is about when we added the ASICs, you know, on the mining rental. You see we went way to the roof. And at this point, the difficulty, I mean, you can't read it, but it says 0.35, right? So we started at 0.002. And we got the difficulty all the way up to 0.35, right? And we're like, and that was making it difficult for them. Just wait until you see what happens next, right? So that was right here. And then here is where we got it to, ultimately, we took it to 20, right? So not 11, 20. So yeah, we just really cranked it through the roof to make it really difficult. And so what's funny is that they have a Slack channel. And so, you know, I was trolling them. I'm like, I got in the Slack channel, and this is like still when we were just doing GPU mining. I'm like, man, it looks like somebody just threw some big. It was like we got it up to like 1.5, yeah, 12 and 15 mega hashes. And they're like, I'm like, wasn't it like 300 kilohashes just earlier this week? So what's going on? And they're like, holy fucking shit, we turned on some stuff, right? It was like Will Swearingen, I hack stuff guy, right? And they're like blaming each other, who's doing this? They have no idea. I'm like, wow, man, something's going on here. I don't even understand, you know. And so they were just freaking out because there's some guy that like showed some interest that like knew about this stuff. They like, did that guy jump in and he's, you know, mining the crap out of it, and we're kind of screwed for our own coin now? Like they were seriously worried, right? And so the problem we had was that we were overspending, right? Because since the network when we started was about 300 kilohashes, we probably could have gotten away with having it at 1 mega hash, right? Because we were significantly higher than the rest of the network. That we could have just been good there and then just kind of gone up and down and up and down, and then they still, because he's like, look, 70% of the coin is better than 97% of the coin, because the 97% of the coin means we take the difficulty way up here. We got to keep a high level hashing. And then the second problem we had was that we were just making it difficult for ourselves too, right? So we had to mine, so we kept having to raise the bar on our own selves in order to keep, because our whole goal was to get a whole lot of coin in a short period of time, right? So we were making it difficult for ourselves. And then the third problem we had is we were just simply overspending, right? Yeah. Oh, are we about? Yeah. Holy crap. So one of the issues we actually had was that we were mining everything to our own wallets, and we couldn't, like, I didn't know how much Brandon was doing, he couldn't see what I was doing, so we created a pool server so that basically we could see collectively how fast we were mining compared to everybody else. So then we could figure out, like, oh, we don't need to, turn us that much stuff. And yeah, so the night that we gave the talk down at SecKC, we got the network up to 12.3 gigahashes. And I'm not talking kilohashes or mega hashes, we're talking gigahashes, right? It was just, through the roof. And so then we created all this coin, but then what do we do with it? We gave it all back. Like during the talk, we made these custom SecDSM paper wallets, and we went super early that day, taped them to all underneath the seats. And I had one that, during the talk, I'm like, I've got one, guys were complaining, like, I used my $10,000 computer, went away for DEF CON for a weekend, I got one coin because of these fuckers, right? And so I'm like, sorry man, here you get the paper wallet with it, which we put 500 coin on it. Like, it was like, it's enough to buy some swag, right? And so then we're like, and I get back up front, and I'm like, fuck it, y'all got coin, go look under your seats. And so we put paper wallets everywhere, each with enough coin to buy swag, right? I put enough on it because their cheapest swag was 500 SecKC coin. And so my whole goal was DOS the swag paper, right? and so since I made the paper wallets, I had a copy of all the private keys. So I'm like, you've got to use this coin tonight or I'm taking it back. Right? So go DOS the swag bagels. And so we ran them completely out of swag. It was awesome. Right now we've jacked up the difficulty so hard that at current rate it's going to take them at least 2 months to unjack the blockchain. There's a whole bunch of stuff we haven't done yet. Like, we want to put the coin on an exchange, because if we do that, then it'll actually have real value, and we could mine a bunch of coin and then get cash out for real cash. But double spending attacks. There's a whole bunch of things that now that this is kind of a public project, we can play with it, right? It's not like Bitcoin or something like that where people will probably come and kill you if you fuck with the coin. They'll just try to vinyl sticker our car, right? So it's a different level of hate. But anyways, that's about all we had. Do you guys have any questions? If you want to find us on Twitter, Brandon Zoom equipped. I'm the notorious hacker named Tom Pohl. But you can come to Des Moines. Second Thursday of every month we have our group meetings so we can talk more at length. Apologize for we ran a little bit over.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So ultimately, how many coins did you mine?
About 70,000.
Into perspective, there were only about 100,000 coins created for SecKC coin ever, right? At the time, so we were shooting more than 50%, and we got 70%. So
that's awesome.